An old-school circuit, a fanatical crowd and excellent conditions, and 20 of the best drivers in the world prepared to go wheel-to-wheel for the 14th round of the F1 World Championship. Welcome to the 31st running of a point-scoring Grand Prix in Japan, and this, the 27th from Suzuka, some 200 miles southwest of Tokyo, and a venue that's seen many dramas over the years. The Senna-Prost confrontations, Mansell's title-compromising crash in 1987, and Damon Hill's title-winning victory here in 1996. The playground is virtually unchanged in all of that time. It's still unforgiving, as we saw in qualifying, and it's difficult to overtake, although Lewis Hamilton managed it last year in the wet to snatch the win from Rosberg, and in the dry, DRS will operate on the main start-finish straight to promote overtaking opportunities here today. But we had the rain on Friday, of course, last year. Very, very wet conditions. I'm glad to say it is a bone-dry track. Track temperature some 40 degrees, and those fans have been pouring in from an early hour. Around 150,000 people will have attended over the 3 days, and there are none more fanatical than the Japanese fans. Impeccably behaved as well, although a couple of them did leap out into the road earlier as we came to the track to try and get an autograph from Jenson Button. He kept his windows closed and continued through the traffic. Kimi Raikkonen then lining up, a bit of a disappointed 6th on the grid in the Ferrari. He hoped for more and was going well through the first parts of qualifying. Felipe Massa lines up in 5th place, same as he qualified in Italy, and he went on to finish 3rd there. Sebastian Vettel, though, the winner in Singapore. What can he do from the second row? It's only the second time he's qualified 4th this year. Well, let's see how the whole grid lines up for this Japanese Grand Prix. So Rosberg on his 2nd pole position of the season. Another front row for Lewis Hamilton, but not pole this time. Bottas 3rd on the grid, only the 2nd time he started there. There's Sebastian Vettel then starting in 4th this time. 5th for Felipe Massa, and 6th place for Kimi Raikkonen. And then behind them, we've got Daniel Ricciardo struggling a little bit for straight line speed. Romain Grosjean qualified well in the Lotus. He starts 8th. Sergio Perez lines up in 9th place in the Force India. And Carlos Sainz, helped by Kvyat and Hulkenberg being pushed back, starts 10th. Maldonado is 11th. And Fernando Alonso is 12th. Behind them, we've got Nico Hulkenberg with a 3-place penalty in 13th. And Jenson Button starting in 14th place. Marcus Ericsson's and Felipe Nasr in the 2 Saubers are together on the 8th row of the grid. And as we work back, we've got Max Verstappen, who also picked up a 3-place penalty for parking in an inopportune place in qualifying. Will Stevens is next to him. Alexander Rossi is on his own at the back because Danny Kvyat starts from the pit lane, and that's a result of the car having to be rebuilt from his accident in qualifying yesterday. So Valtteri Bottas then starting in 3rd place. He's finished 3rd once this year. That was in Canada. Yet to have any non-finishes, so he's had a very reliable season so far. Of course, Nico Rosberg has had the one non-finish. That was in Italy just a couple of races ago. He's never won this Japanese Grand Prix. He finished 2nd here last year. And these are the last-minute tyre pressure checks that are being made on the grid. Now, they are allowed to increase the tyre pressure if it's not up to Pirelli's minimum, and clearly that was what was going on there. They were having to put a little bit of extra into the tyres to bring them up to the limit. So interesting to see that. Most of the teams are wanting to be as low as they can. The fronts have to be 21.5 and the rears 20.5 psi. It looks as though Jenson Button's going to be the only driver starting on the hard tyre here today. Everybody else is on the softer tyre, the medium tyre. The top 10 have to start on that tyre because it was the one they used in qualifying. But Button, along with those outside the top 10, all have the choice. There's an interesting discussion. Ron Dennis with Eric Boulier and Jonathan Neal. The top management at McLaren, are they talking about drivers for next year? That's on everybody's minds. But the grandstand pretty much packed as we get ready for the start of this Grand Prix, and the grid just beginning to clear as the engines are fired up. Rosberg will be wanting to get that run down to the first corner. Absolutely perfectly done. The last victory for Rosberg was the Austrian Grand Prix. And that was a little while ago in this season. He also won the Spanish Grand Prix from pole position, and that's what he's going to try and repeat on this occasion. Sebastian Vettel then, brilliant victory in Singapore, but the Ferrari doesn't seem to have quite the same pace that he enjoyed in the nighttime streets. And you just see the confirmation on the left-hand side of the picture there that all the top runners are running the medium compound tyre, just Jenson Button further down, who starts on the hard tyre. And waiting in the pit lane, Danny Kvyat. So they will set him off, obviously, after the race itself has started. so he doesn't get the benefit of the formation lap. But a great scene all around the track as everybody prepares for the start of this race. Tom, any last-minute news from the pit lane? It looks as though everybody's got off the grid okay.
Everyone has got off the grid okay, and I think seeing only Jenson Button on the hard tyre confirms what we thought after qualifying yesterday, which is this looks like a two-stop race. Start on the medium, change onto the medium at your first stop, and then put the hards on at the end. That is what Pirelli is saying is the quickest way to do that.
So everybody going into it a little bit in the unknown with so little running in the dry. They got that third practice session in the dry and qualifying as well, but there's still a little bit to be learned here by the teams. They'll be monitoring those tyres throughout. Mercedes, of course, comfortably leading the Constructors' Championship. They certainly can't wrap it up here, but going to the next race in Sochi, if they have another 1-2 finish here, then they could possibly go on to wrap it up next time out in Russia. So it would be well before the end of the season, of course. It's really behind them the interest lies, particularly for fifth place in the Constructors' Championship between Force India and Lotus. So Rosberg leads the round. Always a great place to be, David, with nobody in front of you.
The confidence boost that gives you, knowing that you have got a clear track ahead of you, when you think it stands between you and converting that into some clean air at the start of the race is just acing your start. We know it's caught some of the drivers out having to monitor and control that themselves without the feedback from the engineers. And, you know, he's felt pretty good, though, with the last couple of starts and generally this weekend. So his focus will be on the noise he gets as he drops the clutch, because it's as much the noise from the engine as it is the feedback from the car as it starts to judder and pick up traction as you start to accelerate off the line.
Well, we saw Hulkenberg there, just to confirm he's got that three-place penalty hanging over him from Singapore, so that's put him 13th on the grid. Looking at the previous winners here in Japan, Hamilton in the wet, but look at Vettel's record. It is astonishing. 2009, 2010, he won the championship in 2011, but was beaten in the race by Jenson Button, but then he went on to win in 12 and 13 as well. What can he do in the Ferrari? Let's quickly remind you of the lineup then. It's Rosberg and Hamilton on the front row, Bottas and Vettel on row 2, Massa and Raikkonen on row 3, then Ricciardo and Grosjean on the 4th row, the 5th row, Perez and Sainz. Keep an eye on the Toro Rossos, of course. You've got one starting from the back as well. Maldonado and Alonso are on the 6th row. Long time since they were racing for the victory in the Spanish Grand Prix in 2012. Looking at the thermal camera there, by the way. Slightly different picture coming to the grid. Hulkenberg 13th, as we mentioned, Button 14th, then the two Saubers. Verstappen, watch out for Verstappen from 17th. Stevens and Rossi at the back in the two Manor Mauritius. And also, of course, we'll be seeing how Danny Kvyat gets on when he starts from the pit lane. There's an opportunity to overtake, but it's not easy here. So whether they will try something a little bit different in terms of when they make their pit stops, it's going to be a hard afternoon, I think, for Danny Kvyat, who's going to try and rebuild the confidence after that accident yesterday. So it's the same top three in the grid as in 2014, but on a dry track. Rosberg will seek to protect his pole position advantage as we get all set for the Grand Prix in Japan. Lights out, away we go, and Hamilton makes a good start. He's got a challenge as they head down towards the first corner. Rosberg on the outside here, Hamilton's down the inside, side by side through turn 1, still side by side, and off goes
Force India.
Oh, is it Force India? We'll check that in a sec. And dropping back, Rosberg has lost second, he's lost third. Rosberg down to 4th place, and Hamilton has the advantage.
Wow, that was incredible. It looked like he was starting to lose the position to Rosberg as he bravely went around the outside. And here we've got team radio.
I got a problem.
Massa in trouble already. He started well, of course, in 5th place, but he's dropped right back through the field. Sparks coming from behind the car.
Was that contact with the Force India? Is that what's led to that? But let's wait and see. But we didn't get to see what happened at the apex of turn 2. What went wrong there? Did Rosberg have... And that's Daniel Ricciardo with an issue as well.
I have a punch hill.
And it was Perez in trouble at the first turn. You mentioned it was a Force India, David. Well spotted. It was Perez so Ricciardo in trouble, Massa in trouble, and Perez dropped right back to the rear of the field. So there must have been an incident involving those cars as they went into the first corner. So it is Hamilton who leads this race. Vettel in 2nd place. What a great opportunity for Sebastian Vettel. But look at the gap as it opens up already. There's the Ferrari in 2nd, Bottas in 3rd, and then Rosberg in 4th. Putting under pressure. Look at the Lotuses well up. Grosjean, Maldonado are 6th and 7th at the moment.
Well, that's a welcome sign. We know that team has some financial difficulties, and another result here would certainly ease some of the pain. But, well, the pain is growing side Rosberg as he sees himself go across the line in 4th place. He just doesn't seem to, and I hope, Ben, we get a replay of what happened at turn 2, but whenever it's a wheel-to-wheel combat with Hamilton, he always seems to come off second best.
Yeah, that's right. He was on the outside, and in comes Perez, so he went through the gravel. You can see he's got a punctured right rear, so hopefully they'll send him on his way. Ricciardo was still waiting to see back. I think he's going very slowly with it. Oh yeah, he's got a shredded tyre, it's not just a puncture, so he's trying to limit the amount of damage that does to the bodywork. Yeah,
that's a crucial area for the car, and when the tyre's spinning, we've got yellow flags in sectors 2 and 3. You can just see, of course, no stability on that left rear corner, but if it damages the floor of the car, you'll lose chunks of downforce.
So we have the yellow flags out. We're not quite clear. Oh, it's been maybe because of Massa going so slowly. He's got a front puncture.
Yeah, there could well be debris on the track as well, because whatever is now not on the rear wheel of Daniel Ricciardo has laying out on the track somewhere.
It was always going to be a long afternoon for Daniel Ricciardo. It's just got even longer. His teammate, by the way, got out of the pits okay and missed all the action at turn 1. So Kvyat has already got past Rossi at the back of the field, but we're watching Ricciardo having the tyres changed. He goes straight onto the harder compound, the hard compound tyre, as Massa limps around and is almost going to be caught by Hamilton on this lap, as Hamilton leading from Vettel and Bottas. Rosberg in 4th, there's Raikkonen in 5th, then the Lotuses of Grosjean and Maldonado. Hulkenberg's next, there's Alonso. Good start from Alonso into 9th. He's got fellow Spaniard Carlos Sainz right behind him, and then it's Marcus Ericsson who's made up good ground.
Well, it's incredible there's not damage to that front wing, so I have to assume that Massa and Daniel Ricciardo have touched wheel to wheel rather than you know, nose to tail, because no damage. Well, they're choosing to go and change the front wing. That'll add another 10 seconds or so to this pit stop. We practice this, of course, but having a bit of difficulty removing the whole front wing assembly, which is also the crash structure in the event of an accident, and he'll be on his way firmly in last place.
So this is Fernando Alonso versus Carlos Sainz Jr. And both are actually on the same number of points in this year's World Championship at the moment. Seems amazing, doesn't it, that a double world champion is on the same number of points as a rookie in a team like Toro Rosso, but that just explains the year that McLaren Honda have had. Jenson Button, by the way, is in 12th position behind Ericsson. Then we've got Nazem. Verstappen has climbed a few places up to 14th, having started 17th, but that's largely as a result of those that have picked up punctures ahead of him. But Kvyat is now behind Verstappen, so that's going to be quite an interesting one to watch. They're both trying to fight their way through the order, of course.
A long way to go this afternoon, but Rosberg and Vettel, as we get a replay at the start, I was going to say Vettel now with track position will move ever closer to Rosberg, assuming he finishes there at the end of the race. Now, was that the contact already between Daniel Ricciardo and Felipe Massa? It was, even as they came off the line, so it was well before the first corner, and then it just was a big squeeze as we had Hulkenberg on the inside of Carlos Sainz Jr., and then skittle ball into Sergio Perez. And well, Hulkenberg, that's 2 races, 2 incidents. Let's just watch Daniel Ricciardo. He comes to the inside of Massa, and well, yeah, there was a bit of wiggling and wobbling going around. Looked to me that Daniel was maybe moving slightly more than Massa. But let's watch Hamilton and Rosberg. What happens? He tries to bravely hold it on the outside, but in the end, Hamilton pushes him wide.
Yeah, let's watch from Bottas.
Well, he was okay initially, but then it looked like he had a false shift there, which lost him position as he went off the line, and that allowed Vettel. We do know that they've had some gearbox issues. They had a false neutral, and you can see there, yeah, Rosberg, he tries, but he just doesn't seem to be able to find a way of getting the benefit. Now, let's see if Daniel Ricciardo wiggles the wheel towards Felipe Massa, and it was tight, They were almost coming together there with Raikkonen, and he's already got that puncture. So to me, I think it's just a racing incident, but we will wait and see if the stewards want to have a look at that.
It is a narrow track. Look at, he was struggling straight away with that punctured tyre. So, drama on the opening lap, as we've seen here in the past at Suzuka, and it means that Lewis Hamilton has got a 2.4-second lead over Sebastian Vettel in 2nd place. Bottas is 3rd, but one of the stories of the race is the good start for both Lotus drivers. Grosjean started 8th and is running 6th. Maldonado started 11th and is running in 7th position for a team that still doesn't know its future. This is incredibly encouraging. We've lost one Force India. They're being chased by the other one. And remember, in the constructors' points, it is still for 5th place between those two teams. There's 19 points separating them, but a good result. And here comes Sainz, just having a little look at challenging Alonso.
Can I turn off the engine again?
That's fine, Nico. When you can, go strap 3.
So Rosberg asking for a bit more power, a bit more overtaking ability. So can Sainz now use the DRS? He's tucked in behind that McLaren Honda. Is forced to go to the outside. Was there a touch, or was it just a bit of debris out there?
It was debris from the start. They got flicked across and into this Ericsson's car.
And he's taken the place. So Carlos Sainz moves up one, gets past Alonso. Look at this. This was Nasser, and Button got past around the outside. He was very slow there, as Verstappen then went up the inside as well.
Yeah, well, look at the Honda up front. He just loses deployment, and this is the issue for Honda. They end up running out of battery, and it's just, well, can we say dog slow in a straight line? Is that... It's not really a technical term, but
well,
that's basically
I mean, it almost
is.
caused a problem, didn't it? I mean, they both had to go one way and then the other.
Yeah.
Button did well to just hold his middle ground. He had one car flying around the outside of him.
Yeah, in fairness to McLaren Honda, he didn't have DRS, and the two cars behind did have DRS. That will give them anything from 15 to 20 kilometers an hour in a straight line. Yeah,
that was a replay of Sainz getting past Alonso. So, well, happening quickly for the Toro Rosso guys as they're trying to move up the order here, but Sainz has done well. Moved into 9th position now, of course, having got past Fernando Alonso. Looking there at Marcus Ericsson, who's holding on for a potential points finish.
Okay, Lewis will open this gap out. Need about 10 seconds.
Just like that, eh? Go and get 10 seconds gap. I mean, that sounds amazing that it's achievable, but it probably is. Makes you wonder if they're going to go a bit safe and go for a 3-stop race. Tom.
Ben, it's going to be fascinating to see how long Perez, Massa and Ricciardo last on those hard tyres, and I think a lot of the other teams will be watching to see their progress, because as I said just before the start, Pirelli are recommending medium, hard. They've obviously gone hard now because they're trying to do the rest of this race on what is effectively a one-stop strategy. And of course, with the overnight rain last night, the track is a bit green. It's going to be more abrasive, a bit more tyre wear, so they will be the reference point for the others.
Max Verstappen is lining up Felipe Nasser here. These two have had a few good races in recent times. Verstappen was able to get past him in Singapore, also pulled a move off on him a few races ago. Ericsson, in the meantime, has got past Alonso, and again, it looked pretty easy using DRS down the main start-finish straight. So overtaking might be difficult, but we're seeing it earlier in the race than might be expected. Going through the area where Kvyat had his big crash yesterday by just clipping the grass on the left as he approached the hairpin. But Max Verstappen definitely now lining up that Sauber just ahead of him. Of course, the Sauber with Ferrari power is stronger in a straight line than the Toro Rosso, but the Toro Rosso chassis is working brilliantly.
Very embarrassing.
Embarrassing, I think Fernando Alonso is saying, the way that he was past there. And, well, to see a Sauber go past a McLaren Honda quite that easily, I can understand how he feels. Button is still in the background, but being caught, did you see, by the Red Bull of Danny Kvyat, who started from the pit lane. So the other Red Bull, the one that hasn't suffered a puncture in this race, is definitely climbing up through the field as well. But, of course, Verstappen here is also trying to move up through the order. So let's keep an eye on this. Can Max Verstappen find an opportunity to get past Felipe Nasser? Look, the DRS doesn't help because he's just not got the straight line speed he needs. He's going to have to find somewhere else to overtake. A few years ago here, we saw Kamui Kobayashi pull off some brilliant overtakes up at the hairpin.
Nico, engine temps are high, causing damage.
And that's not what he's going to want to hear at all, is it? Rosberg's in 4th place, only half a second behind Bottas. He's really been in the DRS zone of the Williams, but if the engine temps are high, presumably they'll have to back the settings off so that he won't have that ability to overtake quite so much. Now, Verstappen, can he find somewhere a bit different, David, to get past that Sauber?
It's not going to be an easy job. Sauber, as you can see, is good deployment, good straight line speed. But we do know from Max, if he sees an opportunity, he goes for it. So down into the chicane, of course, could be an opportunity for him to catch that Sauber out, especially as the Toro Rosso seems to be pretty handy on the brakes, but through the braking phase, the aero balance is shifting, and however they've got their car set up, they seem to give the driver confidence.
So Hamilton leads the Grand Prix as he comes across the line. He's on to lap 8 out of 53, opening the gap to 4.2 seconds now over the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel. Bottas still in third, and Rosberg has dropped back a little bit on that lap, presumably looking after the engine. He was only half a second behind last time he came through. Raikkonen is still in 5th place. Grosjean and Maldonado are next up, chased by Hulkenberg, and in the meantime you've got Sainz on a lonely 9th and Ericsson 10th.
Well, I just saw this battle here between Verstappen and Nasser. Then Verstappen got the DRS wide open, but he had a big lock-up into the chicane that we could see from our commentary box. So has he done some damage to that front right tyre? You can just see a little bit of a different shade of colour where he locked up there. So he's trying desperately to get as close as possible to the back of that Sauber. He then had a big oversteer moment as he was wheel spinning off the chicane. So he's struggling to get himself in a position to get past.
Yeah, well, there's Danny Kvyat catching as well at the same time. So he's catching Jenson Button in the other McLaren Honda. Max Verstappen just tucked in. It's really difficult to follow that closely at that section of track, but he's bravely doing so. This is the final Grand Prix that Max Verstappen will compete as a 17-year-old. He turns 18 next week. Funnily enough, this was the venue for his father's last ever Grand Prix as well, when he drove for the Minardi team. But Verstappen here, Max is definitely looking for opportunities. Tough to do it at the next section though, at Spoon Curve.
I can't go fast.
Okay, just keep putting pressure.
Well, interesting. I'm trying to think what to make of that as a statement from a driver. I can't get past. What are the team going to do? No, they can't really do anything. You just got to get focused. And you know, it's times like that, and otherwise, what is a very mature debut in Formula One. There's a slight immaturity to some of these statements.
Yeah, well, I suppose we have to allow him that being just on the cusp of being 18. Through the chicane he comes. You saw the lock-up last time, David, there, but this time he's got a pretty clean braking, but a little bit of a twitch from the car ahead. That might give him some opportunity.
Yeah, but he seems to be getting some wheel spin, but he's in the DRS zone now, but I think it's going to be too late as they approach turn 1.
Oh, he's
so
as close as he's been, isn't he?
Yeah. But now what the Sauber will do then is they can change the deployment map to give themselves a bit more boost from the battery coming off the chicane to help defend, and then it might mean they're of course a bit slower in other parts of the track, but he's not going to be able to overtake him in the S's under normal conditions.
It's an early pit stop for Kvyat, who goes and switches onto the hard compound tyre. We'd expect him to do a slightly different strategy to the others because they're trying something to move him up through the field. So he will now drop to the back of the order once again, and having passed the likes of Will Stevens and Alexander Rossi at the back, he's going to have to do it all over again. Just to let you know that the gap between the two Mana Marussia cars is just 1.4 seconds. They're running around pretty close together at this point, but it's Stevens ahead of his American colleague. Max Verstappen still trying to close this gap if he can, but Nasser holding him off for the moment. Jenson Button is behind them. Alonso's just up ahead of them. You just saw him flash through the shot. And now, of course, Kvyat has made his pit stop, so he's no longer a part of this. Hamilton coming across the line, still opening the gap. His lap time there about 4/10 faster than Sebastian Vettel. Second in the Ferrari. Bottas holding on to third for Williams. So 3 different car manufacturers in the top 3 places. Then Rosberg in 4th with Raikkonen in 5th.
Yeah, just looking at the lap times of Raikkonen, he's a full second a lap slower than his teammate Sebastian Vettel. It's a difficult one to explain to the team. They're on the same tyres, presumably in the same cycle of the engines, and I don't think he's close enough to the back of Rosberg to be losing downforce. If anything, that will help pull him along the straights.
Alonso into the pits in the McLaren Honda. This should be for a scheduled stop, but we haven't gone as far as we might have expected for some of these guys on the medium tyre. He goes for a second stint on the medium tyre, interestingly. Whether that means they're going to have to go for a 3-stop race, should still be able to push it to a 2-stop from there, but they'll need a much longer stint, and he has stayed on the softer of the 2 compounds. Maldonado has been keeping close company with his teammate, but he's still under pressure here from Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg has good...
Currently still on plan A,
Whatever that means, plan A for Sebastian Vettel. Hulkenberg has a good record here at Japan in the Suzuka circuit. He's had points in the last 3 years. Did get taken out by Vitaly Petrov in his first appearance here back in 2010. But on board here with Kimi Raikkonen, then, David, you said his lap times are not corresponding to those of Sebastian Vettel. Let's see how it looks from on board.
Sounded like he was flat through there, scrubbing speed, of course, as they go through 130R. But the gap to Rosberg in front, I don't think is enough to unsettle his balance and downforce. So whether he's got some other issue, we will find out in time.
So we've got what's happening here, the two Saubers. There's one of them just been in, yes. So we've just seen a pit stop, I think.
Nasser has been in.
Yeah.
Excuse me. No, he hasn't actually. That's
Alonso.
Yeah, it was Alonso in between on the screen there. That's Button right behind them. So why have they swapped positions? Has Ericsson got an issue as Button heads to the pits?
That is a little bit strange. As Button comes in, as you say, Ericsson definitely still going through.
He had the DRS there, of course, because it was activated off those two cars when he was going through the chicane, but DRSing thin air because the one in front.
There's the explanation. Marcus Ericsson had a spin, right?
130R. Excuse me, at the exit of Spoon Corner before 130R, and that's where his teammate was then able to get up behind him.
Second time we've seen a spin during a race from Ericsson, which looked like just his mistake. As back out comes Nasser and Button ahead of the Sauber. But yeah, Ericsson did that in Malaysia earlier this year and then got stuck in the gravel, couldn't restart. This time at least he's been able to go again, but it's disappointing after he's been putting together a really strong sequence. Maybe just trying a bit too hard. Maybe these tyres with their higher pressures proving to be difficult to handle. Max Verstappen just picking his way past the Marussia there, as he still tries to make up some ground. It was I think that was Verstappen, unless it was Carlos Sainz, who's still running well, getting past that little group at the back there. And there is Felipe Nasser with Alexander Rossi is the car he's just passed.
Yeah, both the Marussias there getting overtaken. Team radio.
So push hard now and overtake Bottas. Push hard now.
Well, I'm sure Bottas is in. So Valtteri Bottas has chosen this moment. This could help Mercedes, because if they can go a bit deeper on the tyre, he's going back on to another set of the medium compound tyres. Tom, it's interesting to see the different choices that are being taken. It looks like most of the top teams are sticking with the softer tyre for this second stint.
Yeah, Ben, the first point I'd like to make is Jenson Button started the race on the hard tyre and he's just given it up after 11 laps, which is incredibly short. Pirelli's projected life for the hard tyre, 25 laps. Now, his tyres have just been wheeled past me. They look fine. There was no evidence of any excessive wear. So it makes me think, just as we're seeing, it's so difficult to overtake round here, that the undercut is everything here. So Jenson just going for the early pit stop to try and get track position. He overtook Nasser as a result, but now he's got a lot of the race to go. He'll want to stay on the softer of the two tyres, the medium tyre. So he's really now going to have to put his smooth style to good use and try and eke out as much life as he can from the next sets of medium tyres.
Yeah, Tom, just looking when you were saying that about the tyre degradation, if we look at Hamilton's first 9 laps, then he's been steadily, he's at lap 5 at a 39.1, he's been steadily growing in lap time to where he's doing 40.1, so they're definitely in that phase, despite the car getting lighter, of losing performance from the tyres.
Well, it's critical that they look after the tyres. Hamilton has stayed out there. He's still pulling away from Sebastian Vettel in second place. Rosberg is currently in third, and important laps here for Rosberg in his attempts to move past Bottas, who of course has now made a pit stop, as we mentioned, and has just gone fastest of everybody in the middle sector.
Well, what will give us a little guide indication is it looked to me like time in pit lane was about 23 seconds for Bottas. So we look and see, quite simply, if he's less than that behind Rosberg, then he's got a chance of coming out in front. If he's more, then he's going to lose that position. He's currently, 36 seconds. He's 32, so at the moment he's on schedule to come out in front of Rosberg.
Hulkenberg moves down the inside of Marcus Ericsson to take the place, and that is for 8th position. So a definite gain, or in fact 7th now, with a pit stop being made by Maldonado. So that moves Hulkenberg up into 7th place. Grosjean, of course, has made a pit stop already. He's likely there to follow through and get past the Sauber pretty quickly, I would think. So Ericsson, who's still waiting for his pit stop, I believe, he will be struggling here a little bit. Grosjean having a good race so far, and Lotus making a relatively early pit stop, and indeed he finds an unusual place to get past the Sauber, showing just how much more grip he's got at this point. But of the leaders, it's only Bottas who's made a pit stop so far. Everyone else is leaving it a bit longer.
Box, Sebastian, box.
Right, well, not much longer, because Vettel will be heading in at the end of this lap. The gap is open to 7.5 seconds between Hamilton and Vettel. Can they get a little bit of an advantage by stopping earlier? This should be very much normal two-stop territory here for Sebastian Vettel, coming in on lap 14 out of 53. And Ferrari looking for one of their usually superbly executed pit stops. Let's just watch. Now, he's gone onto the hard tyre, so that is a slightly different strategy to some of the others. Maybe he's going to make this a two-stop race, but he wants that little bit longer stint from the tyre in this one. So he rejoins once again and goes chasing after those around him who've already made a pit stop. So just have to... He comes out behind Sainz. Sainz yet to make his pit stop, and having a very good run at the moment. There's Valtteri Bottas.
Well, in my calculations, he matched Rosberg's lap time last time around. Rosberg 39.9, Bottas 39.8, so a little bit quicker. Based on that, he's got some clean air ahead of him. I don't think Rosberg's doing enough to be able to leapfrog him at the stop, unless Mercedes pull out an amazing time in pit lane.
On board here with Dani Kvyat, he's down behind Fernando Alonso at the moment. They're running 12th and 13th. They've both made a pit stop. Of course, Dani Kvyat made an earlier pit stop than some, although Alonso's was relatively early as well. And the gap under half a second between the two of them. Climbing up the hill through the S's. Just seen Ericsson having made his pit stop now, so Sauber had given up on him because he'd had that spin earlier. Let's listen to Kvyat.
Multi-10, position 9, urgent.
I am, it doesn't work.
Oh, and he's obviously in trouble. He's being caught here by Max Verstappen. Verstappen in the Toro Rosso, the junior team, catching Dani Kvyat, who of course was at Toro Rosso, got promoted to the Red Bull team over the winter, as in comes Kimi Räikkönen for his allocated pit stop.
And Rosberg stays out once again, but just on Dani Kvyat, that team built up a completely new car. They have a spare car here, but it's all dismantled and it arrives in a box, one of the peculiar regulations that Formula One has. And within just over a normal working day, they had it completely rebuilt, working to 1 o'clock last night and then coming in again this morning.
So Kimi Räikkönen rejoins in 5th place. He's on the hard tyre, so Ferrari stuck with the same strategy on both cars there for Vettel and Räikkönen, looking to make it a two-stop race. Still waiting to see what Hamilton and Rosberg do. Now, this has allowed Rosberg to move up into 2nd position because he's not made his pit stop yet. And we're keeping an eye on Verstappen at the back of this queue with Kvyat and Alonso. But you can see, although some cars were able to get past the McLaren Honda easily down at the end of that straight, it's a bit more difficult for the Renault-powered cars. Interestingly, on the speed traps, actually, the McLaren Honda was a little faster than the Renault-powered Red Bulls and Toro Rossos yesterday.
So box, box, box.
So it's Rosberg of the two Mercedes who's going to get the first call. And that may be because Hamilton has built up such a useful advantage. They want to try and help Rosberg move past the others around him. Rosberg has been told not to worry too much about the vibration he's got on the right front. So look at this, Verstappen tucked in behind Kvyat once again.
He's having to go defensive there. That's where he bended in qualifying, and Rosberg heads for the pits, and Valtteri Bottas just making his way towards the chicane now, so he should come through, regain his position.
The first Mercedes pit stop of the race is for Nico Rosberg. He comes in and we see where Bottas is as he heads around the track, and Rosberg straight on his way again, but I think Bottas will be ahead of him.
Yeah, he'd just gone past as Bottas was released from his pit box.
So it didn't work for him there to get past the Williams. Look how Max Verstappen's tucked right in behind the Toro Rosso here of Dani Kvyat. Will he have a look to the chicane? He thought about it. Kvyat covered it, and there wasn't a space to do so.
Well, incredibly, this is allowing the McLaren Honda to pull away. I think it shows that Daniel has an issue with his car, whatever that request to get the multi-10 position.
Okay, so box, 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 box.
should be straightforward for Lewis Hamilton, coming in with a comfortable advantage at this point in the race. This will all move things around a little bit. Sebastian Vettel will still be in second position. The gap is 28 seconds, though. Of course, he's made a pit stop, and the pit stop time here is around 22 seconds, so Hamilton will still have a very comfortable advantage if the pit stop goes to plan. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz is going quickly still. He's down in 9th place, but he's just set a very fast first sector. Verstappen finding himself in traffic. It was always going to be this way, finding his way up from the back of the field, having got a penalty after qualifying, and indeed not being able to do the whole qualifying session because of electrical troubles. Race leader Hamilton is into the pits. He goes on to another set of the medium tyres. Different strategy to Ferrari, and straight back out again, and he'll have a comfortable advantage over Vettel. You can see Vettel in the background, and it's all looking totally under control for Lewis Hamilton, and Mercedes are back to their best again. On board with Verstappen once more, though, and you can see how close he's getting to Kvyat.
Yeah, again, in the front of Daniel, you have Alonso in that McLaren, and you can see the power of the slipstream as he starts to get sucked up to the back of that car. Small lift through 130R, and the red light flashing on the back of the Red Bull racing car that indicates that there's no further deployment from the battery, so as to warn the drivers that the acceleration, or the rate of acceleration, will rapidly decrease.
So across the line he comes. Now that all the front runners have made their pit stops, let's run you through the top 10. Hamilton leads, Vettel is in second, Bottas third, still ahead of Rosberg in fourth. Raikkonen is in 5th place. Hulkenberg has done well, he's in 6th place. The pit stops have worked well for Force India there. It's got him ahead of the 2 Lotuses, and we know how close it is between those 2 teams, so great work by Force India, and for the moment it's worked. Meanwhile, Bottas coming under pressure here from Rosberg, as you can see. So Grosjean is in 7th, Maldonado 8th.
So push to attack Bottas to destroy his tyres.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure they'll be thinking about that. They know what the trick is. Perez is currently 10th, by the way, despite having had that off at the start of the race. Sergio Perez has got himself back into 10th place. And here comes Rosberg. He's having a go down the inside of Bottas. Has he made it? Yes, he has. So Nico Rosberg has fought his way past Valtteri Bottas and into 3rd position.
That's more like it, Nico. That's the sort of aggressive overtakes that you need to be doing regularly. And this was a brave move on the brakes. But Bottas thought about defending the position, but Nico had committed. He had the overspeed, and sensibly Bottas then opened the door slightly again. That was almost reminiscent of the Senna-Prost famous coming together at that corner. And
Verstappen, oh, he was in position there, but he had to lift because he got on the dirt, and he isn't able to try and do the same thing. Interestingly, Bottas, do you remember he was mugged by his then teammate Maldonado a couple of years ago at that very chicane on the last lap, I think, and you couldn't say he was mugged so much this time. I think he was very aware that Rosberg had to be given space once he was alongside.
Yeah, I think also on team radio.
Danny, this is a reliability issue. Do not use the overtake button. Do not use the overtake button for reliability.
Well, that is not music to the ears of a racing driver. That means that you're basically unable to, when they call it the overtake, it's also like a defend button, if you like, because it gives you extra power, and this is on board with Max Verstappen in the slipstream coming down to 130R. He goes defensive, thinks about going round the outside, which would have just been incredible if he pulled back, but just shows he went round the outside of Blanchimont and Spa. There is no such thing as the wrong side for someone like that. Every part of the racetrack's an opportunity, but on that occasion, doesn't convert it into an overtake.
You may well be remembering that Daniel Ricciardo did a move around the outside there a few years ago, and actually, sadly, then got penalised for going over the white line too much, so you might also be aware of that. Lewis Hamilton's just set a new fastest lap, taking it away from Carlos Sainz, who had it for a little while.
1.2 seconds quicker than Sebastian Vettel in 2nd place. Presumably he's done that just to keep himself entertained.
Yeah, it just shows you the level of dominance is back for Mercedes this weekend. Singapore would seem to be an aberration because they are right back there now. Hamilton leading this Grand Prix, and Rosberg, having fought his way into 3rd, will now, of course, have the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel in his sights. The gap is some 3.7 seconds, or was as they crossed the line anyway. So we'll keep an eye on those lap times. Good lap from Rosberg last time around. He was about a second faster, wasn't he, than Sebastian Vettel. So there's no doubt that Rosberg is catching the Ferrari, and Vettel could be in trouble soon. Alonso still fending off this little group, so Alonso's in 10th, Kvyat there in 11th, and then just looking in behind, still got Verstappen there, just tucked in. Perez has made a pit stop in the meantime, so that's what's moved them up a position.
Well, as much as Alonso is holding up the Red Bull car, he's also giving Daniel the use of DRS, which helps neutralize any attack that Max is able to put on him on that start-finish straight. But, well, this is the most solid battle you've seen from McLaren Honda so far this year.
No, that's right. I think Alonso will be enjoying this, fending them off for them now. Perez, by the way, has made that pit stop. He's out of sequence, of course, after he made a pit stop right at this, early on in this Grand Prix.
Meanwhile, we should note Maldonado is only 2.4 seconds behind his teammate Grosjean in 8th place, and it's easy to knock Pastor, who gives us plenty of ammunition of incidents and accidents, but this is a really solid job this afternoon. Let's hope we can keep it going.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time to go, but at the moment we've got Lotus running 7th and 8th. Carlos Sainz is Maldonado's nearest pursuer, but he's some 3 seconds behind him at the moment. Now, let's see how close Verstappen can get. Doesn't look as though he's going to be quite as close as he was that last time when we saw the replay of him almost getting alongside Kvyat. Oh, Kvyat had a bit of a wobble there. Not going to give Verstappen the chance, I think, to make the most of it, though.
He also gets a little bit wide through the first apex at the chicane, so looks Max is definitely in a quicker position right now. He's a little bit closer as well, but again you can see the DRS is getting neutralized because Alonso is activating Daniel's one.
Yeah, that's right. Kvyat's car, not only in terms of engine, but in terms of the way it's behaving on its tyres, isn't looking that good at the moment. Of course, it has been completely rebuilt. They would normally be able to put it absolutely back to where it was. But racing cars are funny things. Sometimes if you rebuild a car, it doesn't necessarily feel exactly the same as the version yesterday.
No, well, the level of engineering is that you have tiny tolerances in all the manufacturing process, but the fact that there is a tolerance means that sometimes you can get all those tolerances absolutely working perfectly for you, or the flip side, of course, it can just be slot gaps in the wing or, you know, suspension parts. It just doesn't give you the same sort of complete feeling. So there is such a thing as, you know, certain chassis and feeling of car just making a driver feel in a comfort zone maybe that he doesn't get from another car or another chassis.
Verstappen, great drive off the hairpin that time, really tremendous traction. Whether there's a chance to do anything with it, it's so difficult at this section of circuit. And now they're coming on to the longest flat-out section. This is about 0.6 of a mile from here to the chicane, including the flat-out, or virtually flat-out, depending if you're following somebody, 130R. But he, again, isn't quite close enough, I think. There's the crossover through the left-hander. Is he going to go for the late lunge? Decides against it.
Well, meanwhile, out front, Hamilton's just set another fastest lap, a 37.9, which you compare to Vettel, who's now 10.5 seconds behind at a 39.3.
And we've got Kvyat coming into the pits. So Danny Kvyat comes in from 11th place it was. Verstappen now takes that 11th position, and he comes in for his second pit stop. Again, remember, he came in really early for his first pit stop, having started from the pit lane, and Red Bull trying to do something a little bit different here with his car. He now goes on to the medium tyre, but he's going to need another set of tyres before the end of this race.
Yeah, we saw a front wing adjustment there for the different compound of tyres. The driver can call that request up by changing a dial on the steering wheel, so he doesn't need to go on the radio.
This is good, Kimmy, good. Keep going, let's have him.
Yeah, Raikkonen has been catching Bottas over the last couple of laps, and as you can see, the gap is within pretty much DRS range right now, so there could be an opportunity here for the Ferrari. Interestingly, right down at the back of the field, neither of the Manor Marushas has made a pit stop yet, so it looks like they're trying to go through this race on a one-stop strategy. Stevens is still some 3 seconds ahead of his teammate Alexander Rossi.
Well, we had that call on team radio for Raikkonen, but I'm also reading here that Vettel's had a team radio telling him that Rosberg is coming, and he asked the question, should I race him hard? And the instruction was, we should keep him 2 seconds behind. Well, you can neutralize, of course, his attack by the fact that you're throwing a whole bunch of used air in his face. You've taken all the energy creating the downforce for your car, so it's going to make it a bit more difficult for Rosberg, but I'm not quite sure how they can accurately keep a 2-second gap.
No, that would be quite challenging, I would think. on board with Kimi Räikkönen. And remember, they've gone for slightly different choices on tyres because Ferrari have gone for the harder tyre, which is holding up well in this, what would appear to be the middle stint of the race. Certainly very much within range of the Williams, which is on the medium compound tyre. Deep line there by Kimi Räikkönen. That doesn't necessarily mean he's made a big mistake at the hairpin, because you see several drivers choosing to take that line, just use a little bit of the camber of the road to give them a slingshot out of the corner. Now then, this is where he needs a good exit. Better apex than the Williams ahead of him, David.
Yeah, it was a better apex, but unfortunately he's just too far back. And here the time off throttle was noticeably long, and then a sort of explosion of engine noise as he gets back on the throttle.
Also saw a moment ago how close Verstappen is to Alonso. There they are, touch of a lock-up for Fernando Alonso. And Max Verstappen right on the tail of the McLaren Honda, and now doesn't have to worry about the Red Bull that made the pit stop. Meanwhile, tell you that Stevens has just made a pit stop in this race, and I would think he is going to try and do it on a one stop, having started on the softer of the two tyres. Be interesting to see if they can make that. Should be able to do it in terms of tyre wear, I believe. And they must have been looking after the thermal degradation quite severely during that first stint to be able to get this far. Alonso then through the left-hander, where we've seen him absolutely heroic in the past in his attempts, and indeed successful attempts, to pass Michael Schumacher around the outside. It has been done before, and Max Verstappen is the exciting new talent. A little bit of a wobble though on the exit of the chicane through the right-hander.
Yeah, on different tyres, of course. He's on the hard tyre. We've got Alonso on the medium, so option against Prime, but just leaving some rubber on the racetrack, so I had to lift out of the acceleration. His button comes under attack.
Yeah, from Marcus Ericsson once again. They're outside the points. They're running 12th and 13th. Nasser is behind them currently in 14th position. And then we've got Kvyat, who's...
No brakes in third level.
Okay, Danny, we have a split on the front axle again, so just keep working them hard, and hopefully that problem will resolve itself.
Presumably means a split in temperatures across the front axle, not a literal split in the front axle.
No, it's the brake lines connected across the front axle, so what pressure goes to one wheel, one disc will go to the other, but the sort of controlling of the temperatures is so critical, not only to the braking phase, but for maintaining tyre pressures, and the surface temperature of the tyres, especially for Pirelli, is so sensitive. The drivers are constantly trying to monitor that.
Looking back from Fernando Alonso's car then, straight at Max Verstappen.
Looks like McLaren is sponsoring McLaren. You see the logo firmly displayed there. That will be put on there, of course, to be used in marketing presentations, where they can say to people, well, look, all the imagery that you get of the McLaren logo on the rear wing, that could be your company. All of this time is logged and then added up, and you can work out the value of your time on television. So this is fantastic for them, the fact that they're getting all this airtime. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton leads the Grand Prix, but he's getting no airtime at all because he's racing himself.
Yeah, he's 12.1 seconds ahead. Oh, now what's going on here? This is Perez, I believe, against Nasser. They are running for 14th and 15th positions currently. Slightly unusual angle as we're sort of looking at the sidelines of the circuit.
This is a camera that sweeps around, so unfortunately, if he'd passed them on the other side, we would have got a fantastic angle of the camera sweeping, but it looks like it's sort of stuck in a slightly, you know, what is it, sort of like 10 to 2, not even, 10 to 10
That's right.
position.
Well, Perez has made use of it. He's gone past Felipe Nasser, but they are both outside the points on slightly different strategies. Let's take a look. A straightforward DRS pass, and he was ahead well before he had to worry about turning into the first corner, which is always a very tricky section here. Now back with the Alonso-Verstappen race. Alonso takes quite a deep line into the hairpin, doesn't he?
Yeah, you would think that when he's going so wide on the entry that he's going to cut back and try and do sort of straight his acceleration, but he doesn't do that. He lets the car run on that slightly wider line. So just the difference in driving styles and cars and balance and just where he feels the grip is. Again, you can see he's wider there on the entry phase to the second part of the spoon as well, but doesn't seem to give him a bad drive off the corner. By far and away the most competitive showing from the McLaren Honda. Needed, of course, at their home Grand Prix, but it can only be a matter of time before Max finds a way past.
You would think so, yeah, that's right, because he's just all over the back of that car. Behind them, it's a bit of a gap back to Button, but he is next in line, defending still from Ericsson for the moment in the Sauber.
What I think is interesting is that Fernando is doing exactly what he needs, getting the drive off that chicane. And this is, I don't mean to be condescending, but it's an education for Max, from one of the masters of wheel-to-wheel racing. He'll be adjusting his deployment. You can see his red light flashing there very early, so he's not using his battery pack in the first phase of the circuit. And as Daniel goes off the circuit, we saw him do that in free practice as well, so that's familiar territory for him. That's going to have lost him 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, he's having a tough day, a tough weekend, isn't he, Danny Kvyat? He's got his home Grand Prix coming up next, the Russian Grand Prix. A chance to regroup a little bit, but it's proving to be a difficult weekend for him right now. As you say, Alonso still teaching the young whippersnapper what to do in terms of keeping a car behind, but you can bet Max Verstappen won't be intimidated by this. He'll still be looking for every opportunity to overtake. The final point is on offer, maybe different by the time we get to the end of the race, but they are fighting over a 10th position at the moment. Verstappen's teammate Carlos Sainz is running in 9th place for now. Just listen.
He short shifts as he goes through the second part of the corner there at exit the spoon, and that gives him confidence to really go hard on the power and get great drive.
This is a very good pace. You can keep it there. You're doing a strong job, very good job.
Yeah, actually Vettel has certainly responded to the challenge from Rosberg.
Alonso got a little bit out of position there, so this might give Verstappen more of an opportunity. But again, that McLaren's got good traction. There's nothing wrong with the initial acceleration, but here comes Verstappen. Will it be too late?
He's going to have to try around the outside into the first corner. Verstappen sweeps past Fernando Alonso. Fabulous manoeuvre from the youngster who gets past the double world champion into turn 1. One of the classic places to overtake here, but never easy.
Well, Fernando did all the defending he could. It seemed to me that finally he made a small mistake as he went through the first part of the chicane, and that compromised his ability to straighten the car to get great drive off that corner. And Verstappen saw the opportunity and once again showed great maturity in his ability to seize the moment.
Yeah, we've seen some good passes throughout the year from him. Lock up from Raikkonen as he gets a little too close perhaps to the back of Bottas. Bit greedy there because he wanted to be closer to use DRS on the exit.
Yeah, well, that's what we were talking about before the start of the Grand Prix. You really compromise as you go into lower speed corners with these higher tyre pressures. GP2 engine, GP2.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
He's not sending very polite messages, or thinly veiled at all, is he? It's well, a very much public slap in the face to Honda.
David, there's so much talk about Jenson Button, but yesterday there was some talk beginning about whether Fernando Alonso is going to stay with that McLaren-Honda combination. Some comments made by Flavio Briatore in the press particularly. Do you think it's getting a bit tenuous there?
What we don't know, of course, is just the level of communication within the team. But I have to assume he's sending that radio message not just to the team itself, he's sending that to the world. And if he's prepared to do that, then it's because relationships are strained or already broken down. Fernando has already famously left McLaren when he had a multi-year contract with them after 1 year, and was involved in some way or form in the pressure and the discovery of McLaren having some Ferrari data within their organisation. It was obviously singled down to one individual, but there was a hefty fine that was applied. I think it was $100 million, which is going to make your eyes water. I know there's big numbers involved in Formula One, but that's going to hurt.
Yeah, so there is history to that relationship breaking down. It was a surprise to many in the paddock when they got back together again, and earlier this year Alonso seemed to be happy despite knowing it was a building year, but the evidence on the radio today is there is more than a little frustration there. So Bottas versus Raikkonen, the two Finns racing for what is fourth place at the moment, because Rosberg up ahead of them, but Rosberg hasn't really been able to do anything about closing the gap to Vettel unless he's waiting for the opportunity at the next round of pit stops. It might be that Rosberg's just looking after his tyres at this stage. They know it's going to be difficult to close up on track and overtake, and maybe they're looking for the opportunity at the pit stops. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz has just come into the pits in the Toro Rosso. There he is.
Front wing's damaged.
Yeah.
You're going to have to change the nose. So that seemed like a late call for the team because they weren't prepared for that.
And this is going to lose him points, and it will move Verstappen up. So it's going to hand an opportunity to his teammate.
Well, who was he running close to? He was behind Maldonado on the track, but I didn't think he was that close. So as he run off the circuit, as we see Jenson Button head for the pits in the background as well.
So a 19-second stop for the... Oh, there's a bit of debris. So maybe...
Well, has he had a cone on the way in? Is that a cone on the right-hand side? Or?
Yeah, it could be. Let's see. Maybe it was, getting it wrong on the way into the pits, was it?
Oh, yeah, he did. He hit the cone. Well, that was a little bit careless and could have been a big shunt with the end of the pit lane.
So it might have been a last-minute call. It might have been Sainz trying to get in at the fastest possible speed.
There's a lot of debris on the main straight.
Yeah, Perez calling that debris. Is this going to mean a safety car? If there's sufficient debris out there, they might bring a virtual safety car, and maybe they can... in comes Raikkonen. So in his battle with the Williams, Ferrari are going to try and undercut, as it's called, and try and get a good set of tyres on, put in a couple of quick laps, and then be able to pass the Williams and take 4th place.
Well, there's one thing. It doesn't look like they're going to do anything to pick up that debris, but if this was racing in America, they definitely would have a safety car out. They use it as part of the show to bunch the field back up again.
Brilliant 2.2 second stop there by Ferrari, absolutely bang on top pace, and Raikkonen really with a chance, I would think, of taking 4th place from Bottas here.
Yeah, perfect word. It is absolutely brilliant. What these teams can do, world record as recorded in a Grand Prix is, I believe, 1.9 seconds. And this is going through 130R. It's the Sauber in front. Is this a down the inside? It is indeed.
Yeah, it was Nasser he passed.
Well, he might be having difficulty with the brakes at turn 11, which is the hairpin, but no such problem on the brakes into the chicane.
But of course, Verstappen has now moved up into 9th place, courtesy of the long pit stop for Carlos Sainz. And Sainz has rejoined. Might still get a chance to get points here, but that's certainly a blow. There's Vettel then, and he's fighting for 2nd place with Rosberg.
Just trying to work out why Sainz wouldn't have made the call to the team, but of course he's come into the pit lane, so he's getting no feeling from the front axle. He maybe wouldn't have known that he'd done so much damage to that front wing. So the team reacted. So in all credit to Toro Rosso mechanics, you don't expect to check out the front wing and change the nose without some warning.
Rosberg has come into the pits, so Rosberg and Mercedes are trying to do the undercut on Ferrari of Vettel. So they've gone first. They reckon they can get to the end of the race on this next set of tyres.
He's going for the hard. He's not going to quite get the explosive lap time out of the tyre that he would if he put the soft on, of course, and that's a used set of the hards.
2.8 second stop, not as quick as Raikkonen stopped a moment ago, but it could still be the opportunity to get past Vettel and make this a Mercedes 1-2. Bottas is in as well.
This vibration's so big. I'm struggling out here.
Well, presumably Hamilton will be in next time around if they've already brought Rosberg in. Bottas rejoins right behind Maldonado. And Maldonado's not made a 2nd pit stop yet, of course, but he won't want to let that Williams through easily. They are racing for position here, and Bottas will try and use the best of those tyres straight away to nip past the Lotus and go on the attack. But crucial this for Bottas, not to lose too much time.
Yeah, well, he'll be in his mind thinking, right, turn 11 into the hairpin. Do I risk down the inside? Maldonado will be thinking, OK, turn 11 at the hairpin. I'm going to block the inside. So, you know, the mental battle, here it comes. Does he have a go?
The key thing is Raikkonen's ahead of him.
Yep, a late goal.
Okay, box, Sebastian, box.
So he got down the inside. Vettel's being asked to come in, but the crucial thing is Raikkonen is ahead of Bottas.
It seems to me that Maldonado didn't really defend that at all. It's a huge lock-up as he goes for the pit limiter.
Did Vettel make it before he got to the line and get down to the speed, or will he end up with a pit lane speed limit penalty? Well, we'll find out later, but he has now made it to the Ferrari pits. Is he going to be out in time to beat Rosberg? Rosberg through and out of the chicane. Look for Rosberg in the background. There he is, bearing down the main straight. Vettel is on his way. He's going to exit. They're going to be virtually side by side across the line, but Rosberg gets it, sweeps in front of the Ferrari, and Mercedes are now 1 and 2, despite Vettel's best efforts.
Yeah, Rosberg went purple in the middle sector, purple in the last sector. They gave it everything. They would have been in maximum engine mode from qualifying, and well, as you mentioned, the undercut, that's exactly how it works.
But it's not over, because it means that the Mercedes will be going to the end of the race on these tyres. They both will, but if the Mercedes has worse tyre degradation, might be a chance for the Ferrari to come back in the closing lap. So Vettel won't have given up here. There might still be an opportunity. Now, thermal camera replay from a moment ago on board Kimi Räikkönen. We were looking at the overtake there and looking at the brake discs glowing. I couldn't tell which car that was he was overtaking, but you can certainly see the glow of the brake disc.
Yeah, impressive. Well, we know they're hot. That just confirms how hot.
That's right. Now, this is...
that was is it a replay? No, that's...
Bottas on Grosjean.
The Lotuses are just basically getting out of the way.
Yeah, but they're on a different kind of strategy. They haven't stopped again. So I think they're basically just trying not to lose too much time by fighting other cars.
Yeah, I can understand that, and also the fact that they're in the points. This is so important for them to maintain constructors' position.
Hamilton's made his pit stop from the lead. He's got a Sauber just exiting ahead of him, so whether that's going to slow him down a little bit, but he has a very comfortable advantage, and he can afford to lose a tenth or two as he rejoins the track. Meanwhile, Kimi Räikkönen there up into the chicane. New fastest lap for Nico Rosberg, having gone on to the new set of tyres. And Vettel will be trying to stay with him, but that could be a bit of a tall order. Sergio Perez just coming through the shot, chased by Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I think the fact you see Rosberg there 37.1 on a used set of the hard tyres just shows how much Mercedes have in hand. They can't run that pace all the time, of course, because of fuel flow and because of reliability in the engine, but it certainly shows what they can unleash when they really want to.
Yeah, this is a track that certainly suits Mercedes, like nearly all of them have this year, except for the strangeness of Singapore last week, where they just didn't get it together. But we're back to a fast-flowing track like Silverstone, Spa and Spain, where they've got the grip, they've got the horsepower. Carlos Sainz is certainly slithering around in his attempts to close up to Sergio Perez. These two struggling at the lower end of the top 10. Perez on a slightly different strategy. Tom.
Well, Ben, the track temperature is currently 39 degrees. It's actually dropped 2 degrees since the start of the race, but it's still much hotter than we've seen it at any other point so far in the weekend. Well, only yesterday, actually. That was the only dry day we had. But it's just a sort of reminder of just how temperature sensitive these tyres are. We saw that in Singapore last weekend with Mercedes struggling to get their tyres working, and here the hard tyre is a higher working range tyre, and that is the only way the teams are going to be able to complete a two-stop strategy. It's by using the hard tyre more than the medium.
Well, certainly there has been a little bit of difference in strategies between the teams, which is always interesting to see. Carlos Sainz definitely closer to the back of the Force India there of Sergio Perez, but the Mercedes power unit in that Force India is going to make it very difficult for Sainz to be in position to overtake, I think. Hamilton leading this Grand Prix by 9.2 seconds over Rosberg. So not as much as you might have expected. Hamilton, having made his pit stop, I think got a little bit held up as he went out onto the circuit. But I would imagine that he's opening that gap up. Yeah, it's up to 9.8 at the next checkpoint.
Yeah, he's done fastest first sector of anyone.
Checker, you can use everything from the tyre. 4 or 5 laps, use everything from the tyre.
Presumably coming in for a pit stop relatively soon, Sergio Perez. 3-stop race for him. Carlos Sainz on a planned 2-stop race, but of course he had that very slow pit stop for a change of front wing. And in the background there, you saw Felipe Massa is still running in this race, but he is absolutely last, I'm afraid, after that puncture he suffered at the start of the Grand Prix. Let's just quickly remind you what's been happening here. It was a dramatic start and opening lap when Lewis Hamilton managed to dive down the inside of teammate Nico Rosberg at the first corner. Rosberg tried to stay with him around the outside of turn 2, lost out, lost several places as a result, and Hamilton has led ever since.
Please, Charlie, there is a lot of debris. Please clean the track.
So Perez still complaining about the amount of debris out there, but he's fending off Carlos Sainz. So that was one of the stories. The other story at that first corner, and before the first corner, in fact, there was contact between Ricciardo and Massa. Sergio Perez here ended up going through the gravel trap. Ricciardo and Massa both had to trail in slowly, having had punctures, and that means that Daniel Ricciardo is currently down in 16th and not looking like able to score any points here today. And also the Williams of Felipe Massa, that's the reason that he's running around at the back of the field. Haven't had a single retirement in this Grand Prix. Just ahead, well, quite a way ahead of Massa, actually. Interestingly, the two Mana Marushas are running just 0.7 of a second apart, so that's pretty close. Big lock up there a moment ago for Romain Grosjean. Actually, he's went across the artificial grass, but he has now come into the pits, David.
Yeah, I think he's obviously flat-spotted those tyres, and you see the artificial grass just getting lifted up there. That could damage the underside of your car. And it looks like it was in defence to his teammate, Maldonado, having a little go at him, so headed to the pits.
Yeah, both of them running quite long. Look, you see the tyre. That tyre was in terrible trouble, having locked up. You saw bits of the carcass, I think, poking out. So, still looking at Perez and Sainz at the moment. And Sergio Perez still fending off the Spaniard. The lead up front, by the way, for Lewis Hamilton is some 10.6 seconds over his teammate Nico Rosberg. Sebastian Vettel is in third place, quite a comfortable third. It's team by team at the moment. 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, then a single Williams, and then the 2 Lotuses of Maldonado and Grosjean, although we've just seen that pit stop for Grosjean, so that may have dropped him back behind Hulkenberg, I think. And Hulkenberg looking to score points for Force India. Perez and Sainz fighting at the lower end of the top 10. Kvyat still running, he's in 11th, having started from the pit lane. Verstappen, he's in 12th place. He's having a quieter time of it at the moment after getting past Alonso. Both McLaren Hondas are still running. Alonso's in 13th place, Button is in 15th place. But it's not really the kind of home race that Honda may have been dreaming of when this year got underway. Tough season continues for that team, and as we watch the exit of Spoon Curve, just to see whether Carlos Sainz is managing to get any closer again, that Mercedes power unit just pulls away in the back of the Force India, and there's nothing at all that Carlos Sainz can do about it. A lot of talk this weekend again that the Mana team may well end up with Mercedes-Benz engines for next year. And Toto Wolff, the boss of the Mercedes Motorsport Group, talking about it would be a great story to do a deal with a team like that, to see them maybe make progress up the ranks on the grid. And of course, the Marussia is actually last year's car. To tell you that Rossi has just made a pit stop. Kvyat has just come into the pits as well with another big lockup on the way in, a bit like Sebastian Vettel a few minutes ago.
Yeah, also some talk that Mercedes would use that as a young driver development team, and effectively, like Toro Rosso has done so successfully for the Red Bull Racing team.
Yes, so could be good news for Mana Marussia, a chance for maybe for Pascal Wehrlein, the man who's leading the DTM, the German Touring Car Championship, to move across to Formula One.
Okay, Lewis, everything looks under control. Just need to watch out for flat spots. Look after this set.
9.5 seconds was his advantage over Rosberg when they went across the line last time. We're on lap 36 out of 53, which is 2/3 distance in the Japanese Grand Prix. And so far, so good for Lewis Hamilton, and indeed for Mercedes, as they're back to their best. Running 1-2, a little bit wide there for Sergio Perez. Keeps it just about on track. But Carlos Sainz will be further encouraged, I'm sure. Behind them, they've got Massa, but he has been lapped. So difficult to see. Now we were talking about speeding in the pit lane, but it is Will Stevens who's being investigated, and that's going to hurt him because in fact he had lost out already, I think, to his teammate. No, he hadn't. Rossi's only just stopped, so he was still ahead of his teammate when they rejoined, but maybe he was going too quick because he knew just how close Rossi was when they went for their pit stops. Into the pits now comes Felipe Massa, trailing around at the back of the field. I'm afraid it's not a particularly motivating day for the Brazilian, is it, David?
No, on a circuit that he's had good form in the past, but that contact with Daniel Ricciardo, even before they got to turn one, has really shaped their afternoon. As you say, running around at the back, it's more of a test session for the Williams team than anything else. Really, the hope of a number of cars dropping out and giving them a chance of points is pretty slim.
Carlos Sainz will be a bit anxious to get past Perez if at all possible, because the next car coming up behind them is Verstappen. And of course, Verstappen's in clear air. He won't want to be in a situation where suddenly Verstappen arrives behind him and they're fighting it out between themselves. But it just is proving very difficult. Even though he's got the speed in the corners here, he can't deliver any opportunities to actually draw alongside.
Of course, India is pretty slippy in a straight line, and looking at the speed trap times, Carlos Sainz in qualifying 297, and just trying to see where Sergio Perez was, 309, so quite an offset, 12 kilometers an hour at the exit, and that's a really slow stop. That front right proving difficult for the Williams team. It's not the first time we've seen them have a couple of little hiccups in the pit stop. Incredible amount of pressure for everyone to deliver those. Certainly consistent in the 2-second pit stops.
I wondered if Sainz was going to have a go there. He was nearly close enough to do what Rosberg did earlier on Bottas. Oh no, he's got a chance now because Perez makes a pit stop. Out of sequence with the others a little bit here. Perez comes in on lap 37. That releases Carlos Sainz. I think he'll be quite relieved about that. So Perez in Maldonado has just been into the pits as well and rejoins. Interesting to see where he is relative to his teammate. But Perez now on his way out, and it'll be quite tight with Jenson Button as Perez rejoins, I think. Hamilton's about to lap Jenson Button. There is Button, yeah, so he comes out, and Hamilton will swoop past Sergio Perez and lap the Force India. But Button has got back in front of Sergio Perez, who, of course, lost time on the opening lap of this Grand Prix. Well, Hamilton enjoying a bit of traffic to come through at the moment, and he'll be coming up to Jenson Button next, of course. Looks as though Lewis Hamilton's going to take his second win here in Japan. Jenson Button took one victory in 2011, but it looks as though Lewis is well on his way to have won here in the wet in 2014 and now do the same in the dry in 2015. His lead over Rosberg some 10 seconds, and of course Rosberg will have the same task of cutting through all this traffic. Bit of a lock-up just there. I think that was for Kvyat. Kvyat running well down in 15th place, though. Ricciardo is down in 16th place. Vettel, by the way, only 2.5 seconds behind Rosberg. So Vettel still hasn't given up. He's hoping that at the end of this Grand Prix, all those little tyre bobbles that we're just looking at that have been left on the tarmac will indicate that Rosberg's tyres might not be in good shape by the end of the race.
Well, lap time-wise, they're all fairly consistent. You've got Hamilton 38.5, Rosberg last time around 38.9, and then Vettel 38.4. So Mercedes, as we know, can turn up the wick if they want to, but this sort of consistent running is keeping the status quo gap to the front. You've got only Vettel's only 2.5 seconds behind Rosberg, so he's certainly within pouncing distance.
Raikkonen moved into 4th place in the points last time out in Singapore. Just seeing Alexander Rossi getting out of the way here. And just to confirm, those of you who watched the race in Singapore, and we saw how Rossi didn't actually do what he was asked at the safety car period, if you remember, and we were all wondering why. It was confirmed after the race that his radio had broken, so the team were busily telling him that he could overtake the safety car, but sadly he couldn't hear anything. And once race control was informed of that, they decided to start the race as was. So no blame attached to Alexander Rossi himself. But it would have been worse to go past the safety car, not knowing if he should or not. And so he's now in his second Grand Prix. He's now ahead. Oh, no, he's not actually. He's still behind his teammate, isn't he? So the only question is whether that investigation for Stevens will mean that there's a penalty for him. But right now, Stevens is still ahead of Rossi.
For that exact reason, it's very unusual to have radios failing in these Grand Prix cars nowadays, but that's the reason why they have the pit boards. You know, a lot of people will really got all this technology, and you've got a man hanging a board with a number strapped to it, but if your radio goes down, you rely on that. You know, the arrow would indicate that you have to come for the pits. It's not as critical as it used to be, of course, when we had refueling. If you missed your pit board, you could find yourself running out of fuel on track.
Sergio Perez on Jenson Button is going to get the move done before they even get to 130R. Nothing that Jenson can do. Of course, Perez is on fresh tyres at this point in the Grand Prix. Has done 3 pit stops. So some drivers going for 3 pit stops and will be in better shape at the end of the race and catching those that have only done 2 pit stops. So Perez will definitely be one to watch, I think, in the remainder of this race. And Ericsson there in the Sauber is his next target, and he should be in good shape to pass him. That would be for 12th. and then he'll be going after Alonso for 11th, but it is quite a big gap, and then an even bigger gap to catch Verstappen, who's in the final points-paying position of 10th.
Vettel is only 1.7 seconds behind Rosberg, so Rosberg has certainly got his mirrors full of red. He's got a bunch of traffic ahead of him as well to work his way through, so this is going to be very interesting to see just how brave he's going to be with this the traffic. The blue flags will be out. They'll get a sensor in their cockpit as well. As you see Jessica Button, well, still loyally watching her man, despite the fact, of course, he's a former winner of this Grand Prix. Absolutely no chance of that this afternoon.
There he is, down in 14th position. Alonso currently in 11th place. And he's in the mix here a little bit. He's trying to defend from Dani Kvyat in the rebuilt Red Bull after the big accident that he suffered. First time he'd ever rolled a car. In fact, he said it was the first time he'd ever had a really big accident in car racing. He's had some in karting in his early career, but had managed to stay clear of a really high-speed accident since he switched to cars, but he's got a chance to get past the McLaren Honda here. He moves to the inside, and Dani Kvyat takes the place, and indeed also going through, but not gaining a position is Felipe Massa, because he's actually a lap behind Jenson Button, so that doesn't change his position, but of course Kvyat has gained one. He's now 14th.
He just picks up the slipstream. No DRS available. It's only one DRS zone at this Grand Prix circuit, but slips down the inside. Jenson has to lift and of course loses momentum, and it was a late pull out of the slipstream. You needed Jenson to be compliant, and he certainly was.
Yeah, again, very good awareness from Jenson that he was going for the move there, just as he was about to commit himself to turning in. Hamilton's gap still 12 seconds, or built up to 12 seconds over Rosberg, but Vettel within 1 second now of Rosberg. So as they're going through the traffic and dealing with all of this, there's no doubt that Vettel is still keeping the pressure on Nico Rosberg for second place. Remember, there's only 8 points difference now between Rosberg and Vettel, and it would be a huge boost for Ferrari if he could get past. Perez has a little look down the inside of Ericsson at the hairpin there. As they work out their different lines on the exit of the corner, it's still Ericsson who has the edge. He's down in 12th position, brewing that mistake, I'm sure, early in this race. It didn't cost him a huge amount of time, but the spin at this section of track certainly didn't help.
Vettel was only a second behind Rosberg last time, so in DRS zone.
Yeah, so we could be on for a race there. Meanwhile, that's Hamilton having lapped Alonso just up ahead. There's Ericsson and Perez. And just monitoring that gap in the graphic in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can see that Vettel 1.3 seconds behind at the next checkpoint. On board with Perez with this slightly odd view, but it gives us a great chance to see where the crowd are enjoying the race from past the grandstand there. Sweeps past our commentary position, and Ericsson, for the moment, holding the Force India at bay. Just getting a little closer now as they head down through turns 1 and 2. Hamilton's last lap, pretty much the same lap time as Nico Rosberg, by the way, and Vettel wasn't quite so fast. So whether they're just controlling the pace of that second place Mercedes.
Yeah, I think it was also a bit of traffic, you know, as they worked their way through, so that allowed Vettel to close the gap.
Yeah, Raikkonen still in 4th place, by the way, not looking at a podium finish here today in the other Ferrari. I think Williams will be a little disappointed, having been passed effectively by the Ferrari of Raikkonen. And for the best placed Williams, the only one in the points is that of Valtteri Bottas in 5th place. Hulkenberg is in 6th place, could be on for a solid result there, ahead of the 2 Lotuses, but while Bob Fernley of Force India, he's keeping an eye on this one, of course, and seeing how Perez gets on. Could be a really great result. Is this an opportunity? No, he looks up as he loses a bit of downforce on the front end of the car. And Perez has to be careful because he's got Dani Kvyat right behind him there. Felipe Massa joining in the fun, even if he's not a part of it in terms of race position. But Grosjean Maldonado still on for decent points here today. 7th and 8th for the 2 Lotuses. A court case coming up for Lotus on Monday in London. Hopefully they can put that behind them. The taxes that are owed will hopefully be sorted out and the team can continue, and still strong talk that Renault will be buying that team. Quite why it hasn't been done yet, none of us understand. If it is going to be done, But if they can get some points here today, that would also be a massive boost for them.
Ericsson is moving under braking.
Understood. Ericsson is moving under braking.
And the team repeat that because Charlie Whiting, the race director, is listening to the radio, so they want to make sure Charlie's getting that message, and they'll maybe just watch a little more closely. But Kvyat might have an opportunity there, but not really. Not through the S's and up through Dunlop. And this section here is very tight. Massa, tricky situation in a way for Massa here, because he's actually a lap down on these guys, but he obviously feels he's much, much quicker than them.
It's interesting, Williams, they obviously don't feel they've got any issues with mileage on engines as they get into the latter stages of the season, but Massa pulling over there to allow Rosberg a clean run to pass him. Doesn't want to get in the way of that battle between Rosberg and you can see there he's slotted in front. So is he going to just give him a little buffer, hold Vettel slightly?
Oh, just running a touch wide there, Ericsson. Now, can Perez turn this into something as they head down towards the left-hander? Not quite flat out through there, I don't think. Here's a chance. No, he holds his middle ground, but this will now give Perez a really good exit. That was a bit of look up behind from Kvyat. But let's see now with the DRS, is there going to be an opportunity for him to go at it into turn one? He's certainly closer this time. Sergio Perez moves to the outside, side by side they go. Ericsson's still got the inside line, and Perez has to back out of it in the end. That's what Rosberg decided not to do at the start of this Grand Prix, back out of it, and as a result he lost several places, and I guess Perez probably made the right choice there, because otherwise he would have been passed by Kvyat.
It was brave of Perez to try and run it round the outside, and you know what I think was very good for Ericsson, that he was able to hold it into turn two.
I'm losing the brakes, guys, again. The last chicane, absolutely no brakes.
Well, let's hope that he can keep going. All cars are still running at the moment. It's been a little while since we've seen all 20 starters finish a Grand Prix. You have to go back to 2011 for that to have happened. But we'll have to see whether they can hang on in there. Still some way to go, and in fact going slowly was that Kvyat. I think it might have been, yeah,
getting out of the way of Rosberg.
Doesn't want to through, yeah. And of course Vettel's still not far behind, so he's going to have to let Vettel through in a moment or two as well. And Red Bull not having a great day here, are they? Both cars out of the points and really looking as though neither will score. But what is interesting, David, is we talked about Sainz and Verstappen a while ago, but they are very close together now in the race for 10th place. They were only 0.4 of a second apart when they went over the line last time. So we're watching Ericsson versus Perez here, but actually the two teammates who, of course, there was certainly a disagreement, if we say, between them after Singapore, when Sainz was asked to be allowed past Verstappen, and Verstappen said firmly no. Well, I tell you what, Verstappen is now on Sainz's gearbox in this race, a little further up the lap from these two, Ericsson and Perez.
I do sense that Perez, as he lets Rosberg go through, is eventually going to find a way to attack onto Ericsson, to the back of Ericsson. But I think it is, you know, Carlos Sainz, a little bit clumsy, that mistake on the way into the pit lane. That's what has put him in the situation now where he's going to once again be battling with Verstappen.
So Bottas just oh, with big spin there for Rossi, I think that was, or was it Stevens? It is Stevens, yes, sorry, it is Will Stevens, my goodness, losing control through 130R. Oh, and almost taking his teammate out at the same time. Wow, that could have been very nasty, David.
Reminded me of Kobayashi, had a big spin there when he was racing for Sauber in Formula One, managed not to hit anything as well.
Verstappen's going to have a go straight on Sainz. Sainz looks up, but Verstappen is past. We said it was close, and there's the proof. Max Verstappen not hanging around at all and driving past his teammate. A real slam dunk maneuver by Max Verstappen. That's going to hurt Carlos Sainz. But to be fair, these two have both shown tremendous form and poise this year. They are surely both exciting talents, and they are on different tyres, I believe, slightly different strategies at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, we have Max Verstappen on the option, and the white sidewall there just giving a little bit more grip. He stopped lap 31, and Carlos Sainz stopped lap 27, so slightly fresher tyres as well.
Still quite a long way to go for Verstappen, but he should be able to look after the tyres now that he's got past. Dani Kvyat tucked in behind Perez there. So who's going to score the final points? It does look as though Toro Rosso are going to have both cars in the top 10, which would be a good achievement. And the question is whether we're going to see any retirements at all before the end. And it's interesting that Red Bull looks like they're both going to be out of the points here. Oh, Kvyat
thinking about it, isn't it? That's just the entry to Dunlop curve. That would be a very brave move. We did see Daniel Ricciardo use that as an overtaking place in the wet last year. So trying to just find an opportunity up into the hairpin here at turn 11 could well be that opportunity.
It's a great little gaggle of cars. It's a shame they're not fighting for points at the moment, because it is really a good race between Marcus Ericsson, the Swedish driver, in his second year of Formula One. Moved over from Caterham. Sergio Perez, more experienced, and of course reconfirmed at Force India for next year. And then behind Perez, Dani Kvyat, one of the rising stars, who is only in his second year of Formula One, but with one of the best teams, of course, with Red Bull, even if they are having a struggle this year with their Renault power unit. So you've got three very interesting drivers to watch here, but unfortunately, none of them are going to be scoring points at this rate, because Ericsson is in 12th. Alonso is the car up ahead of them, and quite some way at this stage, but Alonso still running around in 11th place. Button is in 16th place, so both McLaren Hondas are running, and at least they are still both out there at this stage. Looking back from Ericsson's car once again, still not close enough is the Mexican, Sergio Perez. Mexico, of course, on the calendar this year, and everybody looking forward to that Mexican Grand Prix straight after the race at Austin in Texas, on a track which has seen Formula One in the past, but it's been a long while since it's been to Mexico. Perez, of course, looking forward to that massively, and telling us that the Mexican crowds are going to be something to behold. We think the Japanese fans are enthusiastic. Well, I think the Mexican fans will do their bit to try and match that when we go back with Formula One to Mexico City. And with that confirmation of his contract, Perez, I think, will be in a very confident mood that they can get a decent points finish there. So, anything he can do at the hairpin? No. Fair play to Ericsson. He's driving a solid race after that mistake he made earlier on. Would be easy to succumb under the pressure, this constant pressure that Sergio Perez is throwing at him. But right now, he's not put a wheel wrong, he's not locking up, and it's proving to be quite difficult for Perez to find any opportunity to get past. The Sauber had a big upgrade package at the last Grand Prix at Singapore to improve the amount of downforce the car's creating. Well, it didn't qualify brilliantly well, but it may be that they've were able to make some changes. Certainly haven't changed the car much from qualifying, but just some little setup changes, tyre pressures, that are giving them a little bit more grip from this upgraded car. Perez just can't get on terms where it matters, and it just shows once again that the Ferrari power unit can be a match for the Mercedes power unit, given the right chassis. Up front, by the way, Hamilton's lead has further opened up now. Lewis Hamilton now has a 16-second advantage over his teammate Rosberg. But Vettel is still keeping Rosberg honest. You sort of wonder what games both Mercedes and Ferrari are playing here, because right now Vettel is a fraction faster as they continue to work their way through traffic a little bit. Vettel 2 seconds. He is behind Rosberg. Raikkonen is still in 4th place. Bottas is in 5th. Hulkenberg is in 6th place. And then 7th for Grosjean, 8th for Maldonado, Verstappen and Sainz, 9th and 10th, as we know. And then Alonso, and then this group here, which is still the most closely fought battle on track.
Perez on the much fresher tyres should be trying to, he's certainly applying pressure, but he's not really looking like, after that failed attempt into turn 1, that he's going to do the big dive. But Ericsson will be, under that relentless pressure of having to watch his mirrors. He can't afford to have one small lockup like we just saw there from Daniil.
Yeah, Daniil has been locking up brakes on and off through practice as well, and as we've heard, he's been struggling with getting the brake temperatures evenly balanced across both front wheels. There's Hamilton then, and you can see the gap with 5 laps to go. It's the full length of the straight and a bit more before Rosberg. Well, it's not even now, because we're still waiting for Rosberg. There he is in the background to come through the shot. That's the advantage, 16.4 seconds. Lewis Hamilton He's got fastest lap in this race. Of course, he did miss out on pole position as a result, partly as a result, we think, of the red flag in qualifying. Well, he certainly felt he was on a brilliant lap. Of course, we'll never know. But Rosberg took pole position, but apart from that, Hamilton has been in total control. And as last year, David, Hamilton coming from second place on the grid, looks like he's heading for another victory.
Yeah, this has been a much stronger performance from Rosberg, though. His racing, his wheel-to-wheel. He got lost out to Hamilton, of course, at the turn 2. But that was a great pass on Bottas down into the chicane. And he just needs to be able to deliver that type of racing instinct and aggression against Hamilton, and then he can win Grand Prix. But the thing that separated them today was obviously the pulling away off the line, and then just that wheel-to-wheel action as they carried it into turn 2.
Yeah, that's right. The initial start by Hamilton was definitely a fraction better. That gave him the chance to draw alongside.
It's going to get tasty ahead.
Ricciardo is catching this group, so that is going to get very interesting as he joins in the fun and games. And Kvyat in the middle of that group, by the way, saying he needs to use the overtake button to get...
Ericsson's gone wide.
And there's a chance for Perez. Is he going to finally get the move done? Yes, he is. And a tiny little error from Ericsson was all it was going to take. Perez gets in front, but watch out in the background because Ricciardo is catching. Kvyat's still being told he can't use the overtake button to try and overtake. Is he going to have a look on the brakes? No, he's not.
Well, this will mean that Daniel Ricciardo will get a better positioning off the chicane on Daniel, who was having to try and see if he can get an opportunity to get down the inside of Ericsson. Ericsson's got DRS. That's going to neutralise any chance for Daniel.
Yeah, and no way through. Oh, yes, he's having a go. No, surely can't. That was a brave attempt.
He was all over the curve as he went through turn 1 and using a much tighter line. Red Bull has got more downforce, more grip.
Fight the Red Bulls, fight the Red Bulls.
And he certainly is. He's hanging in there for the moment as Kvyat again looks for a funny line through the S's, but it won't work for him.
Well, Daniel Ricciardo's dropped back as he was at, just trying to see, was that Raikkonen? I think he's let, yeah, Raikkonen pass. So it's taken him out of this little battle for the meantime. So these guys are going to have Raikkonen, as you see there, on their tail. Blue flags are out.
Yeah, fascinating to see. Massa is down there as well, but he's a lap behind, and they're also letting Raikkonen through, of course, as you say. So that makes life just a little bit more challenging. Ericsson will be the next to get out of the way, and that will then allow Kvyat to close up once again and put them all together. Let's see what the mistake from Ericsson, David.
He just gets onto the curb in the middle of Spoon and then runs wide. And well, he spun there in free practice. He's not been having the happiest of times with this corner. You see, he just gets onto the curb, and that's enough to take him wide.
Doesn't get a little wave from Perez. He just concentrates on what he's doing.
That would have been funny, actually, if he gave him a little...
Raikkonen getting past Ericsson, and that's given Kvyat the chance to go side by side, and he takes full advantage. That's the way to play the traffic, and Kvyat did that beautifully, didn't he?
That was great, absolutely fantastic. You know, instinctive reaction to Raikkonen there, and Ericsson just being caught out.
And now he's got to watch out for Daniel Ricciardo. Again, it's not for points, this, but it's lovely to see that none of these guys are giving up the fight. And Ricciardo there again. Oh, he suddenly slowed down. Was that just letting a car through? But that is that Bottas coming through?
Yeah, that's a good point. Easy to...
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was indeed Bottas who's in that battle. So Daniel having to lift out.
Of course, being at the back of the queues, the first to have to react to the leaders coming through. Take another look at how he lost 2 places here, David.
You see Raikkonen down the inside as he left the door open. That just allowed Daniel to use momentum to put his car in between them. So that was fantastic work, actually, from Daniel. You could see as he was going through the right of the chicane, he's anticipating the fact that Ericsson's going to try and come across them, and look at that, how close they were.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful that they managed to get through there.
It's almost when 2 became 1.
But without actually hitting. So that was great to see. The supporters are still enjoying themselves in the sunshine here in Japan. Very different conditions to what we saw here last year, of course. And Marcus Ericsson, well, he's suffering a bit here. Massa, there is Bottas, who of course Ricciardo did allow through. He seems to have allowed Massa through as well, but of course Massa isn't actually playing a part in the race. 51 laps to be completed. We're on lap 52 out of 53, and we are very much in the closing moments of this Grand Prix now. Felipe Massa will try and unlap himself from Ericsson here, but it looks all as though it's plain sailing for Mercedes here today, despite the fact that they went wheel to wheel and Rosberg lost some places at the start of the Grand Prix. He has been able to recover, but Hamilton has been in total command of this race from the start, when he just got off the line a little better than his teammate. His lead is 17.2 seconds, and the problems that he had in Singapore, the non-finish, his only non-finish of the season so far, is behind him. Oh, and we hoped we were going to get all the cars to the end here today, but I'm afraid Felipe Massa has been forced to retire. We're not going to get the whole field through to the end of the Grand Prix, almost within sight. He may actually still be classified, of course, having stopped so late in the race. He probably will be. So in the results, it will show that all finished, but sadly it won't actually mean that they all get across the line. Good result this for Nico Hülkenberg in 6th place, and he always seems to go well here in Japan. This will match his best finish of the season. He was 6th in Austria. He's had a bit of a more difficult run recently. Didn't start the race in Belgium. Of course, in Singapore, he ended up having the accident with Felipe Massa, which cost him grid places here. But this is a good response from the man that won Le Mans earlier this year with his teammates, and had a really good patch during the summer there in Formula One as well. And he's going to come home with a solid 6th place. But there's no doubt about the man that's going to take victory here today. It's Lewis Hamilton, and it has been very, very straightforward. So after the difficulties of Singapore, car sliding around a little bit, but I think he's probably pushing on reasonably hard on this last lap. He has already taken fastest lap, so he certainly doesn't need to prove anything. Comes up past the banking on the side of the track here, down towards the double apex left-hander, and at a track which has not always been, as he put it, comfortable for him yesterday. He said in qualifying, he's not always felt totally at ease here. Well, he certainly seems to have converted that into a couple of great results in the last 2 years. In the wet, he survived those difficult conditions, pulled off a great manoeuvre to pass his teammate Nico Rosberg for the victory. And here in the dry, he has been pretty much untouchable ever since Rosberg made a little bit of a poor start and was forced down to 4th place through the first couple of corners. Lewis Hamilton exits the final corner. Hamilton wins in Japan to take back-to-back victories at Suzuka. It's his 3rd ever win in Japan, having won at Fuji as well in the past. And now he has matched Ayrton Senna's 41 career victories. It took him 1 race more than Senna did, but it's a 1-2 finish for Mercedes, their 8th of the season, and interestingly, the 8th time a team has managed that here at, in Japan. Sebastian Vettel takes 3rd, Ferrari beaten well and truly this time. 4th place, though, will go to the other Ferrari of Kimi Räikkönen, and of course that will certainly help them to maintain their position in the constructors' points, in 2nd place, comfortably ahead of Williams. Williams having to settle for 5th place, courtesy of Valtteri Bottas. Force India in 6th. Lotus, a great effort to get both cars home in the points. Grosjean Maldonado, it's only the 3rd time this year that Maldonado scored points, so well done to them after a weekend where they've had no hospitality for everyone to go and get fed and get their cups of coffee. Maybe that is the new tweak. They'll have to hang out in the garage from now on. But good effort from Lotus, and Verstappen finished 9th with Carlos Sainz in 10th.
Awesome stuff, Lewis. Fantastic race, mate. Awesome result.
Fantastic job, guys. Absolutely flawless all weekend, you guys. As always, it's great to be back up here. Thank you so much for all the hard work.
Well, not quite always, David. It didn't work out last week.
Exactly, no, but I think it's, well, the sentiment's there, isn't it? Showing that they win together, they lose together. But you really sense that even after all these victories, that he really loses himself in the moment. He was stroking the car. When they do that in the Parc Fermé, you can sometimes think cynically it's for the cameras, but doing that when he's driving round, you know, this is a moment where the driver just, you know, other than the radio transmission, he just gets to enjoy the feeling himself. He's unwinding from the intensity of the Grand Prix, open his visor slightly, cool off, and then reflect on a job well done.
I tried everything. I was 3 or 3.5 tenths down, and the tires were on the limit, so not more that I could have done in that lap. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the in lap, of course, and then that's where Rosberg used the undercut.
So the result, it's a 1-2 for Mercedes. Hamilton ahead of Rosberg, Vettel in third and Raikkonen in fourth place. Valtteri Bottas takes fifth for Williams, sixth for Nico Hülkenberg, and then the Lotus pairing of Romain Grosjean and Pastor Maldonado. And then the two Toro Rossos, good effort that for the team, for one of the smaller teams to get both cars in the points there. That's also extremely impressive. Fernando Alonso, I'm afraid, missed out on the points. What a shame. It would have been at least a little bit of a boost for the team if he'd scored 1 point, but nope, he was too far back, some 12 seconds behind. Sergio Perez was 12th, Danny Kvyat 13th, ahead of Ericsson, Ricciardo, Button, Massa, Rossi, Stevens, and the one man who didn't see the checker flag, that was, of course, Felipe Nasr. But victory it is for Lewis Hamilton. It's the same top three, in fact, as we saw here in very different conditions last year and very different circumstances. But Lewis Hamilton can celebrate a second win at Suzuka, matching Damon Hill in being able to take 2 wins around this historic circuit. And it's the 40th ever Mercedes Grand Prix win as well. Good recovery in the end from Nico Rosberg, having been squeezed out by his teammate down at turn 2. And certainly Hamilton was robust, you would say, in the way that he dealt with Rosberg through that second corner. But you would also probably say that any driver would have done the same thing. Vettel comes across to congratulate Rosberg and celebrate with the Ferrari mechanics. Ferrari got into a bit of trouble in Singapore for pushing their way through some barriers at this corresponding moment, or just leading up towards the podium celebrations. A letter of apology had to be made to the FIA, but no actual penalties were given to the team. And Vettel continues this consistent point-scoring run, but the sheer pace that he enjoyed in Singapore has not been present here in Suzuka. Could be an opportunity next time, perhaps, in Russia, in the Sochi track, because they'll be going back onto the super soft and soft tyres that seem to work so well for him in Singapore. Mercedes seem confident that they will be able to thwart that threat, but, well, we'll have to wait and see in a couple of weeks' time as to whether Ferrari will be stronger there. Let's go and join the drivers as they prepare for that podium celebration.
Comme à Singapour. Il a vu wow, wow. Et après, plus loin, hein, pas au début. Assez loin. Ça m'a perdu la course. Ils n'arrivent pas à résoudre ce truc-là.
I think Nico's still talking about the start there. It bogged down a little bit.
Schon eine Runde früher reingekommen. Aber gut. Im Nachhinein ist immer einfach. Viel Verkehr am Ende, gell? Ja.
Ich habe eine richtig coole Auto.
Ja, das kann sein, weil der Inlauf geschüttet ist.
Ja, sogar besser in meiner Quali-Runde.
Mein Inlauf wäre 38,7 gewesen. Zu dem Zeitpunkt war es nicht schlecht.
Guys have been clearly working hard, but Vettel looking a little frustrated he couldn't do more. In the Drivers' Championship, Hamilton's lead up to 48 points, so he's opened up a little bit more of an advantage over his teammate. Sebastian Vettel not able to further close that gap to Nico Rosberg, of course, so it hasn't made much difference. And in the battle for 5th place in the Constructors' points, by the way, despite Lotus getting a double points, of course, Hülkenberg was 6th, so the gap hasn't changed much. Force India still 5th in the Constructors on 77 points, Lotus 6th on 60 points. Useful points for Toro Rosso today, and they are quite well ahead
Here
of
we come,
Sauber.
ladies and
And then
gentlemen,
we've got
in
McLaren
third
and
place,
Marussia at the back.
Sebastian Vettel from Germany.
So
In second place,
Vettel, who
also
loves
from
this place,
Germany,
has
Nico
always performed well.
Rosberg.
He finishes in third this time. Nico Rosberg is going to come home in second, of course. And
From
Lewis
Great
Hamilton
Britain,
taking
Lewis
victory
Hamilton.
once more in 2015.
And in his honour and that of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas team, we hear the British and German national anthems. To Lewis Hamilton.
Well, Lewis Hamilton's having an amazing season, isn't he? He can still match Sebastian Vettel for 13 wins this year if he carries on this way, but he would have to kind of clean up for the rest of the season. You wouldn't put it past him, though, because he's having an absolutely stunning year.
Represented by Loic Serra, head of vehicle
Loic Serra
dynamics,
is receiving the trophy on behalf of Mercedes, who are back to their best once again.
Of Mobility Land. Congratulations to the team for their 8th 1-2.
And of course, for Nico Rosberg, it's a runners-up spot once more. You could see there was definitely some frustration from him about the way the car got off the line. That is going to be one of the stories here. But ultimately, he was able to fight back and pull off one of the best overtaking manoeuvres of the race when he got past Valtteri Bottas, and that was a crucial time. And Sebastian Vettel then receiving the trophy for third. No drivers from Red Bull there this time, and that's the first time at Suzuka since 2009 that we haven't seen a Red Bull driver on the podium. But celebration time for Lewis Hamilton. He's taken his 41st career win in an utterly dominant style here at Suzuka. And it was certainly for his case all about that first corner, first couple of corners, and that's surely the story of the race in many ways. He's got plenty of supporters down there in the crowd. The number 44 being proudly displayed, and the number 44 is heading for his third world title, surely, unless something very strange happens. It's going to be German TV presenter Kai Abel to do the interviews here today. I think they're having a few microphone problems at the moment, so it's going to take a moment or two for the interviews to get underway here, sadly. But the drivers will hang around so that we can get some of the story of the race. So, yeah, we'll just wait for them to sort those microphone problems out.
We have a microphone that's working fantastic. So one more time, hello Suzuka, can you all hear me? I tried one more time. Anatagata wa sakodesu. That's for the Japanese. Hello Suzuka. And we have the winner stepping down now, Lewis Hamilton, thank you. Lewis, congratulations. You equaled Senna's record. So tell me about your magic start.
Yeah, well, I have to firstly say a big thank you to all these fans that have come and stood in the rain. And I don't know if anyone can hear us, but standing in the rain and... Oh, you hear us? Konnichiwa!
They hear you.
Really, I'm so happy right now. Just the teams did a fantastic job this weekend. It's great to be back up here as a team with a 1-2. I had a great start. Thanks again to the team working so hard to make sure we get good starts this race. So, but yeah, for me to come here to a race where I used to love watching Edson drive and to match his wins is, yeah, I can't really describe it. It doesn't feel real at the moment.
So how important was it for you to strike back after Singapore? There's still some alcohol in the ear, right?
No, it definitely was important for us to strike back. I think, you know, the Ferraris were incredibly quick in the last race, and I guess we didn't bring our A game. So we really had to take a step back in these last few days and make sure we brought it here. So as I said, couldn't have done it without this team. Just remarkable what they've done. The car was, yeah, the car was beautiful to drive today.
Thanks, Lewis. So far, coming over to you, Nico. Fantastic fight back to the podium, but tell me what happened when the light went out?
Yeah, Lewis just got a better start, fair play, and then it was a good battle into turn 1, but turn 2 actually, and he had the inside and just made it stick, so that was the end of it there. And you know, then it was great to fight back to second place, because 4th place would definitely have not been acceptable, but second was the best possible thing after that, so I was happy with the fight back. And great also for us as a team, you know, to be back up here after Singapore, really awesome.
Seems that Lewis is pulling a little bit away in the championship. Can you still catch him? This guy
yeah,
there?
For sure, it's going the wrong way, definitely. I had to win today, you know, that was important, didn't work out, so just need to try and win next time out.
Sebastian, for you, being here on the podium again after marvelous victory, what do you think about in front of these fantastic Japanese Ferrari fans?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's obviously great to be back on the podium here. It's, I think, my favorite race. I love the track. I love the fans. I love the trophies. Unfortunately, I didn't get a bigger one today. It was close with Nico, I think. We had a chance, but obviously, yeah, it's always easy with hindsight. But
shower time for Zep.
Thank you.
So
Zep, overall, I think, yeah, it was a fantastic race. The start was very tricky, and it was interesting to see those two fighting in the first corner. Obviously, I could benefit. But yeah, all in all, very happy with the race today.
Tell me, in what direction is Ferrari going right now? Are there more victories to come this season?
Well, I think we're going in the right direction. Obviously, we knew from the start of the season that these boys will be difficult to beat. They have a, you know, they're doing a great job, first of all, both of them. They have a great car, they have a great engine, so all in all, it makes them difficult to beat. But I think we are much better than what people expected, and it's nice, as I said, to be back on the podium here. On top of that, it's been 20 years now that I have been with my helmet supplier, RI. I know that I shouldn't probably mention this, but it's something very special. I remember when I was a small child walking in, so thanks also to all the people in Japan at RI, and yeah, I love this podium.
So thanks for the commercial block, Zep. And coming back one more time to Lewis at the end. Lewis, we are in the land of karaoke, and you are a brilliant singer, not only a brilliant driver. So what will be the song you're going to perform tonight then?
Victory dance. I don't know. I did a song last night called Victory, so that's the one I'll be playing.
So maybe the winner takes it also. Cheers again. Lewis Hamilton, thank you very much. Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel, waiter of the month with the champagne. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Suzuka.
The force was with Mercedes once again today, and following the slump of Singapore, in the case of the three-pointed star, the Empire strikes back